Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
And we're bringing you today our Greek Trireme. We're going to be doing a lot of Greek games and we're not doing any naval battles, but there are a few bits with beaches involved. So I figured I'd put together a Trireme just to have an extra gaming tool. What do you think of it?
Looks pretty good.
Yeah. It's done on 3 decks. That deck's slightly below the waterline. There's 2 sets of oars on the second deck, and you have a guy who sits on the interior and rows that way, a guy who sits on that seat there and rows, and a guy who sits there and rows. So you've got three decks of oars, or three sets of oars, making it a very, very fast ship. Pardon me. They were built for speed, these things, and they were pretty good for the period. This is pretty much the most advanced type of ship you found. Quadriremes did start to come in really in the Roman period. The Romans did go in for quadriremes, but they dropped out pretty quickly because the Romans won. And they pretty much conquered the whole of the Mediterranean. And then they didn't need a navy after that, because they'd won.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so they pretty much disbanded the navy, and the guys who operated sails ended up working in amphitheatres across Rome, operating the covers over the roof of the amphitheatres. What a sad end, really.
Much safer though.
Yeah, well that's what happens when you win. The Romans defeated everybody. So, the model itself is entirely made out of balsa. The whole thing is made out of balsa. And we've got a little chair at the back, that's where the guy who steers sits.
I hope that's nailed down.
Yes. He just sits on the back and he steers, and the officer will stand here as well, and you'd have an officer at the front, and you would have 4 soldiers, 4 guards. 4 men in armour. Unlike films, a trireme typically only had 4 soldiers on board, which was more than enough. You want to keep the amount of weight to the top of your boat to the minimum.
Understandable to be fair, you don't want it to sink.
Yes.
We've got a lot of people doing gnawing, which means there's not enough weight as it is.
Yes. The central part, right down the middle, has a pile of rocks. This is used for 2 things. Firstly, it's used for ballast. It keeps the centre of gravity of the ship low. Secondly, when it came to combat, if you had another ship trying to fire at you, the other ship was Persian and had 40 to 80 bowmen on the top firing at you, the guys down here would run up on deck, and they would each carry 1 or 2 stones, and they would throw the stones at anyone who was boarding them.
Hey, tell me about that.
Yes. Imagine how lethal that was.
Well, knock straight out.
Yeah. If you're Persian and you're trying to board one of these ships, you get really close, you can only see 4 guys on top. There's only four hoplites on the top of this deck.
Easy pickings.
Yeah. And then suddenly, you're wearing basically pyjamas, and you maybe have a wicker shield. If you're lucky, you probably don't have a shield. And you're either firing an arrow at the boat, or you're about to board it, and suddenly you get hit in the face by a rock. And you all get pelted with rocks. That's pretty horrific. That's bad. Of course, you could wear armour, which would defend against the rocks. You could wear possibly a bronze shield and some full body armour and some greaves, and then the top of your boat becomes top heavy and it rolls over and you all drowned. So instead you're left with trying to fight the Athenians and losing every single battle you fight, because you just don't they just outclass you. Also, 4 marines on the top is all they needed. There were instances of Greek ships boarding Persian ships. Persian ships would have up to 40 guards on board. That's not including the slaves and the staff. They would have 40 fully armed soldiers on board, and 4 Greek hoplites were enough to kill the crew, to board a ship. Because the Greeks are armoured, they're completely armoured. They actually do wear body armour, they wear everything, they have all the heavy stuff, but there's only 4 of them. And you're wearing pyjamas. And you have a spear and a wicker shield. And the Greeks just board your ship and kill you. If there's nothing you can do. It's like fighting Darth Vader. If Darth Vader boards your ship, surrender. Just surrender. There's no point trying to fight a Jedi. You're going to lose. Huh.
Just stand around in a circle. One of you is about to hit.
You could do that, yeah. That is not. But all he's going to do is jump up into the air and you're all going to shoot each other.
We do it in a confined space.
In a corridor. They tried that.
No, because not a quad corridor.
With four exits. Yeah, and you all shoot down the middle. Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
He can't run away, can he?
So what happens is the poor old Persians with their 40 snarling soldiers tried to board this Greek ship and laughing at the Greeks because there's only 4 guys on board, and the Greeks just step onto your boat and just lightsaber all of you to death with their dories.
Best we do. That's what I'm thinking of now.
Yeah. Although I very much doubt they would use dories. I would assume the Greek hoplites on board would use javelin for decent range, and in close combat they would use their, well, if they're Athenians they would use the coppice.
I don't think they'd waste time. I think they'd just board it, slaughter the crew, free the slaves, and have an extra ship.
Yeah.
That's just...
Which is what they did, yeah. This ship is a ship of the line, so this is the standard type of ship. The Greeks built 30 of these for the Persian War. So they had 30 of these triremes fighting in battle. The Persians had way more ships, like 10 times more ships. But the Persian ships were mostly biremes or single deck ships. They were not triremes. The only triremes in the Persian army were carrion. We've done videos on the carrions already.
Yeah.
There may have been a couple of other city-states that could bang together a trireme, but it's unlikely. Also for the war, the triremes were deliberately built for war, not for anything else. Most of the rest of the ships in any fleet were mostly used for trade. So they would have large storage areas and they wouldn't have defended decks. So this top deck here would not be on most Persian ships. This top deck is a fighting platform. So most Persian ships, even if it was a trireme, would not have this top deck. So good luck fighting those guys. If you throw something at them, these guys threw rocks. Imagine having an open deck of oarsmen and rocks sailing down. They've got no armour whatsoever, and if they're Persian, they're probably chained to the oars. So that's pretty horrific. The Greeks built 30 of these to fight. I think all of them survived the war, more or less. I think they might have lost 1 or 2 of them. I'd have to read up again. But they were lethal. They were way bigger than the Persian ships. Some of some stories that the Persians would come alongside one of these, and they would try to board it, but they couldn't reach. It was too high up for them, and the Greeks would just jab down and kill them. During battle, one often thinks, well, one thing you would try to do is knock off your enemy's oars. The width of this ship was slightly increased, so you could fully ship your oar inside. What the Persians would do is put their oars up as they tried to go past, because there was no top roof. These guys had a roof, so they pulled their oars in, and the width of the ship is the length of a maximum length of oar. Yeah?
Pretty good.
Yeah, although it wasn't as easy putting the oar back down, because you have this leather thing strapped around the oar to stop it from slipping. So you had to pull that off in order to pull your oar in, which meant that when your oar went back down again, it didn't fit back properly. So it wasn't as good, but it meant that you could still sail. You still had the ability to row. And quite often the Persians never pulled their oars in anyway, because they just weren't trained to do it. So the Greeks would just take all the deck of oars out The Greeks also built 4 ships which were just like this, but they had no top deck, but it was all really low down to the water, really low down, and it had a ram on the front. Well, every ship had a ram, but these were built entirely for ramming. They had no soldiers on board, and they were very, very fast, very thin, slim ships, and they were just rams. And these 4 ships just sailed up and down, just ramming ships and then sailing away. And they were very, very low to the deck, so shooting low to the sea. So it was very hard to target them.
That's actually a really dangerous ram, because the impact can be useless, but the rounds around the bottom, which means it's in the wall line. So it's just gonna your ship will literally just sink.
Yeah. The Greeks were able to, when they used to ram a ship, they'd ram it, then row back, clearing the ship. The ship would then begin to sink, so they could go through the ship that they just rammed, because the ship had broken in half. Because ships weren't built as one solid hull, they were built in sections. Pardon me. So each of these are a section of ship which you would build separately, and you would put them together. And that meant that when you got rammed in the side, the ship would break up. So if you look at the, oops, I just broke my ship. Each section was built separately. But for these, the triremes, they were built solid. So each plank would overlap the next section, meaning that the entire outer hull was one, well, not one section, but it was all one. It was all interlinked with each other. So unlike the Persian ships or even the Carian ships, you could break one section, the ship would break in half. Very hard to do that to these ships. Very hard. The smaller Greek ships, yeah, you smash those easily because they were designed the same way. But these ships, they were just built for war. They were financed by Themistocles. He came up just before the war. There was some Greek miners discovered a silver mine, which meant that Athens suddenly became extremely rich because they found this silver. And the people wanted to divide the money out. Basically, they'd sell the silver in the mine, and they would divide the money out between the entire population of Athens. Yeah? Because it was their land, it was their mine, so the mine everybody would get a lump of cash, basically. But Themistocles argued that there was going to be a war with Persia, and he actually falsified the evidence at the time. He said there's going to be a war with Persia, and we're going to have to build a fleet of ships. And the government voted, but Themistocles won against Aristides, and they got their ship, they got the money, and they built these 30 ships and the 4 rams. Entirely built for war. Possibly the first time in history that people actually deliberately built ships only for combat. So these would be the dreadnoughts of their day.
Pretty much.
Yeah, they would be unbelievably lethal. And kitted out like a dreadnought as well, with the open central section and everything. Probably because it did the same purpose. I'm not sure. Also, Greek ships tended to be fitted with artillery as well. Depending on the situation, they would carry the parts for ballista and Scorpios. So they could fire shots, and they would fire into the hull of an enemy ship and then just drag the enemy ship, which would tear its oars off and break it up. Extremely lethal. And forget about fire. People didn't fire arrows at ships.
Well, it would just go out before you can get there anyway.
Yeah, and you would, ships tended to be painted with fat.
Well, it's not going to
which is not flammable.
It's in the ocean, it's not going to get found.
Yeah.
Everything's going wet.
Yeah, and they tended to be painted with fat that was non-flammable. Not fat. Fish fat. What do you call fish fat? Oil.
Fish oil.
Fish oil. Fish oil is non-flammable. They would paint. They would rub the ships down with fish oil because it cured the wood and stopped the wood from rotting, and it also probably stank horrifically. Just imagine a fish market.
No.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
So if a sailor got off a boat and walked on shore, the people in the town would be like, "Yeah, boat's arrived." Oh God. Good bath.
At least you don't burn alive.
Yeah. I was told that by a Greek in Greece. Funnily enough, they have one of these in Greece, and he told us all about it. And they actually built a number of these for it was like so many centuries since the Persian War. They built a number of these ships just for show, really, just to show how you could build them. And there was a lot of enthusiasts locally who built them, and they have one still there, and they showed us around. And it looks a lot smaller than it. I mean, it looks huge on the table, and it looks huge when you look at it. But when you stand on it, it's not as big as it looks. It's actually quite small when you're inside.
Great. The Greeks built a TARDIS.
Yes, it's smaller on the inside. It could also travel through time as well. Yes,
Yeah.
The well-known Greek time travellers have been causing trouble ever since. Anything else to tell you about Greek ships? Or this particular ship? No, not really. Questions?
You got one question.
Only one? You used to have lots of questions
It's
when
a
you were
Kraken.
smaller. The Kraken.
It is one.
Why?
Well, look at the back of it.
Yeah,
Look at the front of it.
yeah.
At night, that's a Kraken.
It looks like a Kraken, yeah.
I'd surrender.
Yeah, you're right. It is actually designed to look like a scary animal. The whole idea is to instill fear. The Romans used to paint their ships, so they would paint them bright red or bright green or whatever. The Greeks don't appear to have done that. By the time when the Athenian Empire kicked in, there are depictions that makes it look like the boats may be painted, but we really don't know. We know the Romans for sure painted their ships. We don't really know about the Greeks. Later Greeks, yes, but not this period. This period, it seems to be they just knocked them out of wood. We know carrion ships were black. They didn't tar, that would be silly. They painted their ships black so they could be camouflaged at night.
Nothing wrong with having a tarmac. Yeah,
Now if it catches fire.
It would sink.
Yeah, that too. The sails on warships were white.
Well, yeah, you don't want people to see it, do you?
They were white, so if you look at it, it blinds you.
Okay, well.
It's the Mediterranean, remember, in summer.
Why not have a mirror then instead?
Mirrors would be really expensive. There was a chap who invented a mirror to fire light beams at enemy ships.
It would work.
It did work.
Blind the guy in charge.
Yeah, the Mythbusters guys, they didn't believe it, and so they built one, and it worked. They set a Greek ship on fire, they made this bit of the Greek ship, and then they got the mirror to shine on it, and it caught fire. So they proved that it would actually work. Basically firing laser beams. That's pretty awesome if you think about it. So if that would have caught on, you would have had Greeks with laser beams. That would have been awesome.
Would it though?
Yeah, laser beams are brilliant. They're awesome. You could actually have had Jedis then. You could have laser swords powered by the sun with lots and lots of mirrors and people running behind you holding the mirrors to keep the light on the sword to make the sword glow. But really complicated to do, but I reckon they could do it.
You can't do your funky dance moves, can you?
Yeah.
No, you have to go, oh, no, it's gone now.
Yeah. So that's it then.
So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and comment down below what you think of the Greek Trireme.
So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
Goodbye.